like to acknowledge that we are visitors who have gathered on the traditional lands of the Kamloops territory. We honor and respect the people who were here before us, and we are committed to reconciliation and building relationships within this community.
Welcome back to 24 Hours on Our Streets. In this second episode, we will look further into a day in the life of those experiencing homelessness. We will also attempt to shed some light on the lesser-known topic of invisible homelessness in Kamloops, BC. Because of negative stigmas and the shame felt by so many, I have protected the identities of many of the participants in this project.
Are you homeless now?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. What would you want people like that have no understanding of what that means or is like? What would you want them to know?
Well, that not everybody is homeless because it's their fault. You know, like a lot of them are on disability. Like me, I have epilepsy. Mm-hmm. Right. I was just diagnosed with epilepsy, so mm-hmm. It makes it really hard to, you know, go out and see these jobs that I could have and I can't work. Mm-hmm. You know, so like, and there's a lot of people that I know that are homeless. That it's because of that. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and they don't take that into consideration either. Like, I've worked my whole life. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had 3 kids. The addiction has never taken, you know, the better part of me. But people look down on some of my friends who are they just don't take care of themselves quite as good as I do. Mm-hmm. And they're homeless too, and they treat them way differently.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Like, how did we get here?
Drugs.
Yeah.
Drugs. The drugs are just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
They're becoming more addictive.
Yeah.
And killing people, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like the drugs that they're addicted to now are literally killing people.
Deadly.
Back in the day, you didn't see people overdosing on weed, right?
No.
No,
it's definitely changed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think a city like Kamloops needs to do to start helping people, but in a better way? Like I was saying to him, like a shelter's not really like a humane.
Well, like you said, there needs to be more like small job opportunities and things like that people can, you know, like 2 days a week go and work 3 hours, donate 3 hours and get paid for it, or, you know, things like that. You know, like
mm-hmm.
it would give them more incentive to want to join into the community a little bit more, and maybe the community would look at them different too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's manageable, you know, mm-hmm. because like people have said, they're like, well, I'd love to go work 8 hours a day, but
sleep on the ground for like 5 days and then say
then
that
try and
you
do
can,
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. Like there's not enough places and resources that way.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. In speaking to the viewer, what would you like them to know about like what it means or what it feels like to not have a place of your own to go to at the end of the day?
Well, it's a horrible feeling, especially when you've had it all your life, right? Like, and then all of a sudden you get diagnosed with a sickness and you can't take care of yourself like anymore. You know, like it's.
My story definitely has a lot of ups and downs, that's for sure. You know, my first kind of inkling of invisible homelessness is when me and my mom had to couch hop for the first time. We had gotten a bad bill and all of a sudden we couldn't stay where we had to live anymore. It was, you need to get out, you can't afford, so there you go. And it kind of just snowballed after that, is how I think of it, because it went from, you know, we don't have a place to live, to now the lunch ladies are offering me food to go home with. They're offering to do my laundry and the school laundry thing because we didn't have anywhere to do it. You know, it was...
How old were you when that happened?
I was about 6 when it started.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very grateful that I had someone in my life that after a few years I could go and live with them. My mom is Shannon. But, you know, then I came back here and it all started again. So...
What was sort of the impact to you in the long term, something like that happening at such a young age?
I'd say my self-confidence was a huge one. I got bullied really, really badly, you know, for not having the nice things, you know, having to get extra food from the lunch ladies, you know, not being able to go on field trips, the dance, and a lot of friendship envy, a lot of jealousy that I didn't know I could experience at such a young age. Because I'd go to people's houses and I'd see, you know, the loving families, the food, the clothes, the going out to eat, the everything. And I wondered why, you know, why wasn't I allowed to have something like that? You know, what had I done to make it like that? Which I didn't do anything. It was just the world. How the world is sometimes.
Circumstances, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I think your life would be different now had you not experienced that.
I think my trauma levels would be down. I think my trauma levels would be down because I wouldn't have had to experience a lot of the things that I did. And I also think that my relationship with my mom would have been a lot different. My mom had me when I was really young, and having me when you're young, or having any kid when you're young, poses a lot of challenges. Housing, clothing, all that stuff. And I think maybe if the extra stress had been off of her, we would have had a good relationship. And I think my jealousy of everything would have been gone too. I wouldn't have been so jealous and envious of everyone around me, and I would have been probably a little bit more self-confident, that I would have been able to join, you know, school dances, field trips, stuff like that.
Well, I'm sure it had a really, I'm sure it was hard for your mom too, right? Like being in that position with a child.
I couldn't imagine what she went through, but fudge is she ever strong. She is one of the strongest women I know, and I give her a lot of flack, but she did her best with what she could. And I'm proud of her for that. So at least for me, because I had to move so much as a kid, that meant moving schools. By the time I was in middle school, so about grade 8 I want to say, I had been to 14 schools.
That's a lot.
And each time I had to be the new person, I had to make new friends, and I had to restart my learning journey all over again. And I think that translates to a lot of kids now, especially if they decide to go into college and university, because you're missing so much time, you're missing how to learn. And you're missing how to, you know, learn how to sit and learn and read and do all this stuff. And I know for me, when I tried to go to university, I almost failed out quite a few times because I didn't learn how to learn. I constantly got up, I left, I'd skip school because I thought, you know, well, I missed middle school, I missed elementary school, why can't I miss this? And another big thing is waiting for the boot to drop. For the longest time, I didn't understand what it meant. So I was like, oh, like it's my anxiety, you know, I'm just waiting for something to happen, waiting for the bad to come because you've been taught that bad is going to come. And I think that's a really big thing that impacts kids and makes their anxiety drive up, is having all of these bad things like no food, no house, no water, no heat, no electricity. And then you just kind of start waiting and waiting and waiting for that other boot to drop.
And that's a weight that you're carrying, like a big burden. Yeah.
And a child should never have to carry that.
No.
A human should never have to carry that.
Experiencing invisible homelessness or are precariously housed, it may be their first time actually experiencing this, and so they may not know kind of what resources are already out there that they could actually tap into. Mamas for Mamas and my role there, I'm a volunteer resource coordinator. I can help them kind of navigate the resources and see what is already established in the community and help them kind of reach them and know what options they have, but also we'll try to kind of fill in the gaps. You know, what gaps do they have? Did they already go to the food bank this month but are still now low on food again? Can't afford the diapers, the formula, the wipes. Maybe we can make sure that they get those in their hands, so then the money that they do have can be put towards maybe their rent or their mortgage. It means it's often a temporary accommodation of some sort, or it could also mean that you are in a position where you are maybe one crisis away from losing your housing. So it could be you are in your expensive rental that Kamloops has, and you are short on rent, and you're on the verge of potentially not being able to pay rent, and then potentially be unhoused and lose your housing. It could also mean people who are couch surfing and not having that kind of stable housing, and that could be taken away from them at any point. And so they're the most vulnerable kind of population to become homeless. People are often feeling a lot of shame in their situation, so they're not able to feel safe reaching out. You know, especially if they have children, they could feel unsafe reaching out because they may feel like they'll lose their children. And so at Mamas for Mamas, we want to create like a safe community where people feel like they can come forward and receive the support that they need. So we come across a lot of people who are potentially escaping domestic violence or domestic abuse situations, and so they are in a situation where they need to leave, and so they are desperate for any kind of safe haven housing that they can receive. But that could also mean that their safest place is a tent or in their car in a parking lot somewhere moving around. And so it's something like that, that those are the people that we are often working with. Yeah.
And what kind of resources do you pair them up with, or how can you help someone that's in that sort of situation?
Yeah, so if they reach out to us, then we can link them with already established resources in town. You know, have they connected with Elizabeth Fry yet? Have they connected with the ministries or hardship assistance that they could access? If they're able to find housing and they don't have enough money to afford like the damage deposit and the first month's rent, that's something that we at Mamas can help with. We want to reduce the barriers that they face in order to be able to secure. There are people who are at the poverty line or below who are making $20,000 or less a year. They qualify for some of the subsidized housing, although the wait lists are extremely long. But there are these people and these families that are making more than that, but they don't then qualify, but they don't make enough for to afford like the cost of living costs. And the issue is that we are not accounting for the cost of living per capita in our regions. It's expensive to live in Kamloops, it's expensive to live in BC, but the eligibility criteria is not changing. And so despite working full time, you are not necessarily going to be able to afford to put food on the table for your family or pay your bills or make sure you have secure housing.
I think that's such an important point because, you know, people have sort of a skewed view or stigmas attached to homelessness, and when they think about it, they think, well, get a job, do this, do that. But it's like a lot of people are working and they're working hard and they still can't, you know, make it because it's too expensive. So I think that's a really good point. Do you think there's any correlation between like race, gender, or sexual identity and one's chance of being homeless?
Yeah, discrimination is everywhere. Marginalized groups like the Two-Spirit LGBTQ, IAT plus community, Indigenous people, people of color, females, even seniors. There's a lot of marginalized groups that do not have the same access to opportunities and resources, and they just don't have that equality. And so if they are going and needing support, they may not necessarily be receiving it like other people would.
Yeah. In your opinion, what things could a city like Kamloops do to reduce the number of its community members that are in these situations?
Yeah, so the city of Kamloops can advocate for more affordable housing and more available housing, and can also advocate at their local level, at the provincial level if they can, to change the eligibility criteria so more families and more people can qualify for subsidized housing. It really goes back to, you know, the availability of housing and the affordability of that housing and the eligibility criteria, and making it so it is based on cost of living per capita, because in Kamloops it's more expensive than other towns. Same with Kelowna, same with Vancouver. There's big towns, big cities in BC, but the eligibility criteria is the same in every town. So what needs to change? Well, we need to change the actual criteria and the cutoff lines. We need to increase those. We need to make it so it's more based on the cost of living in that particular area.
Mm-hmm. What could the long-term effect be on a child that's sort of growing up in this sort of situation?
Yeah, so children in these situations, they're facing instability in their childhood, and they may then learn unhealthy coping strategies on how to deal with the stress and the trauma that's related to maybe moving around, you know. I think it was very telling in that point in time report. There, out of the 312 people who were homeless in the count, there was 46% of them who said that they experienced themselves homelessness in their youth between the age of 0 and 24. And so I think it's almost 50% of people who are currently visibly homeless in this town were themselves homeless in their youth. And so if that's not telling, I don't know what is.
You know, it's not going to get better overnight. It might not get better in a month. It might not even get better in a year. But keep pushing forward and reach out to help, you know. Reach out to your school, reach out to your teachers, reach out to different places, ask wellness, welfare, Mamas for Mamas, you know, different places that might be able to give you or your family resources that you need, you know. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I know that asking for help can be a very shameful thing, but don't be afraid. Just do it, because I bet you the second you ask for help, the second that weight is going to feel a little bit lighter. Definitely housing and wages would go up, and a sense of ease and security to everyone going through homelessness, invisible homelessness, and foster care, you know, and group homes, all that. I'd give them a sense of security and home and safeness, because I was in foster care, I have a lot of friends who was in foster care, and you just want to feel safe when you're there. And I think that's what I do for them, is I make them feel safe, make them feel at home.
That's awesome. Do you have any other final words for the viewer of this documentary?
You got this. You got this. You know, take what I said to heart, reach out to those resources, and just keep trekking.
Mm-hmm.
Keep doing you. Because the more you do you, the awesomer you're gonna be. You know, don't become normal for anybody. Be your weird little self, because sometimes being weird helps you get through things.
Mm-hmm.
Just
100%. And I think there's a revolution coming.
oh, definitely.
People who are just like you, they're like, give me 20 years, okay? This is a revolution. It is coming.
Thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time to hear the stories of our beautiful participants. We hope they have been as meaningful and thought-provoking to you as they have been to us. In our next episode, we will meet with various experts around Kamloops to discuss the topic of homelessness and its impacts on the individuals involved. We will also look at the negative impacts on local resources and services caused by the growing housing crisis in Kamloops. forward to introducing you to our next guests.